The Biden autopen controversy taking a new turn. Axios is reporting senior Biden officials repeatedly questioned the decision-making behind the former president's questionable pardons and use of the autopen to sign crucial measures. Maria spoke with House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer on this program last week about the legitimacy of these pardons. Watch.
Are you saying that there is a chance that those documents, whether it's an executive order which hits policy and impacts American people, or whether it's the pardons, are they not legitimate?
I haven't seen anything that would suggest that they were. I think they're in peril right now. These last three witnesses that we're bringing in for transcribed interviews, they better produce some hard evidence to make everyone on the Oversight Committee think that Joe Biden knew exactly what was going on, or else I think that all the pardons and executive orders, especially the ones during the last 4 or 5 months of the Biden administration, I think they're all in peril.
So then it could be that the pardoning of, for example, Dr. Anthony Fauci is not legitimate.
Exactly. That's correct.
Joining me now is Missouri Congressman Mark Alford. Congressman, according to Pew Research, Biden granted clemency to over 4,000 people. To be clear, 4,245, that is a record. More than any other president in U.S. history. 95% of those were in the final 3.5 months of the presidency, Congressman. And some of these pardons, just to lay this out specifically, Maria mentioned policy decisions. Energy policy is one thing, but one official at the DOJ, this is Liz Oyer, she said, especially when it came to these death row inmates, she was told not to contact the victims' families. Basically, do your job, shut up, and don't complain, is what these DOJ officials are now coming out and saying about this whole thing.
Well, Cheryl, I think this is a great disservice to the victims of these crimes, these heinous acts of violence that were perpetrated on these poor victims, and now the people who committed these crimes go scot-free, basically. This autopen controversy, the autopen chaos, I think will go down in American history as one of the biggest disservices that the Biden administration perpetrated on the American people and the justice system. It is unconscionable for the President of the United States to basically not know what other people were doing and using an autopen and using his authority as the chief executive of the United States of America to let people out of prison and to pardon people, including his son, in advance of future prosecution. I think it is shameful, and I applaud Chairman Comer for getting to the bottom of this, and I think you're going to see some big things coming in the next couple of weeks.
And this is why the work of Comer is so important, Chairman Comer, because, it was really, you mentioned that Hunter pardon, that was December 1st of 2024. After that, apparently that's when there was this mass scramble to identify all these other individuals that they could pardon before President Biden left office. And I will say another DOJ official did resign in protest over this at the time. So we're looking for more, obviously, from that committee. I want to ask you about this as well. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has revealed that the Trump administration may declare a national housing emergency this fall. This would address high prices and limited inventory. Now, Bessent says interest rate cuts would be helpful, but the administration could also take some other steps to alleviate certain costs, Congressman. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, look, I had the Real Estate Caucus, a former realtor. We have more than 120 members. It's a bipartisan caucus, and we are delving into this. We're about to actually file a rather large bill regarding this measure and hoping to work with the White House on this as well to get their support. But there are things that are prohibiting people from achieving the American dream. For years, our parents and grandparents thought that home ownership was the basis for that American dream. And I feel that way as well. Building equity as you build your life and have something to leave to your children, some sort of inheritance to fall back on when you get older, to take equity out of that home. Our young people now are not really interested so much in buying a home as they are in having experiences and travel, which is good, but there's something to be said about home ownership, and there are some big things standing in the way. Insurance, down payment, making the monthly payment. It's just out of reach for too many people, and the prices of homes have gone up dramatically in cities like Kansas City because they've adopted the Green New Scam ordinances that have gone out through the Inflation Reduction Act. And those building codes have added about 30% to the cost of a house and making it even more unachievable for young people.
So that's the regulation that you're talking about. So does that come from, say, if you're talking about new builds, is that something that EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin needs to tackle? I mean, what agency would be best to handle this? Does it all go through HUD? And the other thing you mentioned, which I think is important, is it's a lot of these local, city regulations and state regulations. A lot of states are going to push back, obviously, on being interfered with by the federal government. Do you foresee that, playing out?
Well, look, I'm a strong believer in the more government is local, the better. But these regulations that were overburdening and still are overburdening in some areas, these cities chose to adopt these. It wasn't something that was really forced upon them. They chose to adopt these, and it's hurting the building markets in Kansas City and other parts. We have seen it firsthand, and we've got to make sure that some of those are rolled back so that builders can do their job. Supply is a huge issue right now. The supply isn't there. The interest rates need to come down. We need to take a look at how do we bring insurance rates down. It's several factors that are playing into this, but if we don't get this fixed now, we're going to be in trouble in the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay. Before you go, I do want to ask you about the business at hand in Washington right now. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is signaling bipartisan talks still have a long way to go to prevent that government shutdown. There is just 9 legislative days left to prevent one. Watch this.
Republicans can continue to go at it alone. They can continue to bow down to Donald Trump. They can continue to surrender Congress's constitutional powers over the executive and enable Donald Trump and his evil minion, Russell Vought, as they illegally cancel and steal congressional-approved funding. And we Democrats will not accept that. We won't bail Republicans out as the cost of health care, groceries, school supplies, rent, electricity, automobiles all go up and up and up. We Democrats don't want to see a government shutdown. But avoiding one means Republicans have to show they are serious about having real, substantive, serious negotiation.
There's also reports, Congressman, I mean, you are a member of House Appropriations. There's reports out there that basically some of the House Republicans are splitting with the White House on how to avoid a shutdown, and that this really is going to end up being a CR.
Well, there will be a CR. I will guarantee you that. It's just how long that continuing resolution will be. As you know, Cheryl, we're still living under 2024 budget numbers. We are doing our work on the Appropriations Committee. We have 10 out of the 12 appropriations bills done out of committee. We're doing labor, health, and human services today, and then we'll focus on commerce, justice, and science after that. We'll get that done. 3 of them have been passed off the House floor, but we need time on the House floor to get these passed. And I think a short-term continuing resolution up to possibly Thanksgiving might be what we need to get it done.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I know that the Trump administration wants a 1-year. That's according to the report in Fox News this morning. Congressman Mark Alford, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time as always. We'll be right back, everybody.
Thank you.